Melanie?
Yeah, I was working with Melanie when she was at Minnesota Title.
Okay.
Then yeah, she.
Awesome. I'll have to have you. Britt, she's our CEO of Great North Title, and she's put on the show for you guys.
Yes. Awesome. All right. Thank you guys for coming today. Like Kayla just said, I am Britt. I am the founder and CEO of Great North Title. Melanie is your assigned closer for Minnetonka. She's right downstairs on the first level. I think July 1st or August 1st, I have to confirm. She will be moving upstairs, so she'll be even closer to you guys. But you are welcome to reach out to either one of us if you have any title questions that come up when you're in the middle of a transaction. But today we wanted to just kind of go through some really important things for you to know as an agent. And remember that you don't have to absorb all of this information. It's just good for you to have on hand. What a lot of our agents will do is actually just take a picture of each of these and then just kind of like create an album in your phone, like title stuff, so that you can just reference it on the fly when you come across a transaction like this. So let's get started with our first thing on the agenda, which is the title toolbox. So page 2 in your packet here. Oh, there's a little packet there in the back, and then you're welcome to help yourself to snacks and beverages. All right, so title toolbox. So as a title company, the best thing we can do for you is to provide you with our experience and our exceptional customer service. But with all the competition out there, we want to bring you to the next level. How can we do that? Well, here we are to present you with Title Toolbox. This is an application that you guys will have access to as a client of ours. It is something that we pay for, but we give you free access to since you are a client of ours. So it kind of just goes through the basics of what it does, but you can do all types of searches. So if you're looking for something specific, like, for example, you're looking for somebody that's owned a property for 30 years and it's free and clear, you could do that. You could do a search all the way around the lake if you're looking for a specific lakefront property that you could maybe reach out to somebody for. There are a number of other great options in here. We will be doing a training once we have everything set up. Right now, we're working with VenueTech, who's listed on the bottom there. You don't need to contact them. We will be providing all the information. But once it is all set up, Kayla and I will do a training session that you guys will all be invited to. We'll help you get your account set up. It will save everything. And then rather than having like a spreadsheet on your own that you continually update, your login will keep everything updated. So if there's a change in any of your searches, it will automatically update for you. You'll also be able to do net sheets through here. I don't know if that's something that's interesting to you guys or not. Every agent's a little different, but we will have access to a net sheet in here that will automatically pull our title charges as well. So that'll be a cool tool. But more will be coming on that in the weeks ahead. All right, next we're going to jump into seller impersonation fraud. I don't know if you guys have heard a lot about that, but it's becoming more and more popular, especially for properties that are owned free and clear. So if there are no mortgages on the property, the fraudsters are doing searches because public records are public. And so they can see, oh, there's no mortgage on the property. Let's see if we can get away with selling this property to a cash buyer. And they've been successful. Luckily, we have not experienced that yet at our company, but it is happening all around the states right now. One way that you can avoid that is watching for those red flags. Vacant property is another big one. So if you guys are having random people reach out to you trying to sell a vacant property, you want to do your research and pull up like tax records. You can get any kind of identification that that seller really is the seller or the owner of the property. But one thing that we do to really combat the fraudsters is we use a portal called Qualia. You've seen Qualia because that is how we communicate with all of our clients and all of our customers. You can send us regular emails as well. But I just want you to be aware that your clients are going to be communicated through this Qualia portal, which is encrypted. Why is this important? Because the fraudsters look for keywords, so they can do a keyword search, hook into your email and watch it for 30, 60, 90 days, years, and watch for keywords like purchase, sale, wire, proceeds. As soon as they get that, then they'll hook into your email and then create another email that might look like it's from you or it's from the title company. What you want to do to confirm whether it is really us or really you guys is if you click on the email address, like right on the top where it says from, it'll give you the full email address. So that's something you want to notify your customers of, buyers and sellers. Be on the lookout for those emails because they might get a fake email saying, send your wire 36 hours before closing or 48 hours before closing. And then they follow those wire instructions. They come to the closing table and boom, their money's gone because they wired it to some fraudster that has now transferred those funds overseas. Now they have to deal with the FBI. Chances of getting those funds back are, and that is happening all over, including Minnesota right now. So Qualia is the portal that we use. And so some people might find that annoying that you have to log in. You can download this Qualia Connect app on your phone. So it's easier. Once you set up the account, you can always check your stuff on the fly. So it is super convenient. But we do have instructions in here on how you can control your notification in here. Some agents love all of the updates, all the communication. Some are overwhelmed with all of the communication, and so they want to cut back on that. That's fine. You can go right into your notification settings and set that to nothing or everything or just specific things. If you do set it to no notifications, that's totally fine. You can still log in and check the status of all of your files. Another cool feature about this is that any transaction that you close with Great North Title will all be listed in your portal. So you can go back to all of your transactions from previous years. So if you want to provide like a warranty deed in Alta to your seller or your buyer down the road, or you want to review it with them, you can just pull up all your transactions right in that portal. But it's all customizable, which is super cool. But just wanted to give you that heads up so you don't think that we're super annoying with all the Qualia notifications.
Before we get too far along, I'm still baffled by the, like if grandma and grandpa own the house outright. And then someone can just sell their house. Like, what?
Yeah, so they will create fake IDs and try to be that.
Okay.
So I am not a real estate attorney, so I cannot offer legal advice, but I can tell you a couple ways that could add an extra layer of protection that I've seen some of our customers do is to keep a home equity line of credit on the property, even if they're not using it, because then it appears to anybody that does a search that there is a mortgage on the property. So that's one thing that might stop them from going after that property. So if they do have a home equity line, hi. You do have some brochures in the back there. If you want to follow along. And then another way would be like a trust. If you put the property in a name of a trust, that could be helpful too, because it's going to be more difficult for them to prove that they are the trustee of a trust. So those are a couple things that you could do, but we can also refer you to someone for estate planning or trust planning if that's something that would be important to a parent or a grandparent or even yourself, your properties. You have more about that?
No, that was just like, I mean, yeah, I get the fake emails and
Yeah.
I click it on the email, making sure that it's like a legit email, but.
Yeah, and with AI, they're just getting better and better, right? Like usually there's these red flags, but now that AI is starting to create these emails, people will probably fall for it more than they already have. In the US, we've already lost billions in the last year to this real estate fraud scams. So something to definitely look out for and always notify your buyer or your seller in the transaction to be on the lookout. And, you know, that just gives you one more reason to let them know how important it is to have those relationships, right? Local relationships. You want to work with a local preferred lender that you know exists, right? That you can go talk to in person or you can text or call. Same thing with a real estate agent, same thing with a title company. With Great North Title, we always provide our cell numbers and so our customers and our clients always call us or text us if we want to compare. So they don't have to go to the main line and get transferred. All right, so we are going to jump into a little interactive time. All right, so I'm guessing you would be interested in being an actor in this next.
After? Sure, why not?
Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm gonna have you come up. Melanie said you would love to participate, so.
Melanie said that?
No, she didn't write that. I was just on
I'm
her.
gonna text her.
Why would you say that? All right, so we are going to have you play the realtor, which should be easy for you. And now.
I know the answers.
Now I'm gonna play the buyer, okay? We're going to talk about marital status in the state of Minnesota. So every state is a little bit different with their guidelines as far as whether the spouse has to be involved in a transaction or not. So the golden rule, do you already know it? The golden rule is?
Yeah, two to sell, one to buy.
Yep.
right?
Yep, so 1 to buy, 2 to sell, or refi. So your buyer can purchase a property if they're married without their spouse, as long as they're approved to do so. But you want to let them know when they go to sell or they go to refi, that spouse, even if they're not entitled, still has to participate in the sale of the property. They will be assigned. That'll be important to know too when you do a listing, you know, so if your owner says, well, my wife wasn't on anything, so she doesn't have to. Well, actually, Minnesota is a marital interest state, so she does sign as a seller. Do you know the difference between a non-purchase? We're going to go back to a buyer now. You know the difference between a non-purchasing spouse and a purchase money mortgage?
I don't know.
Okay, so that is something that we will learn here. So non-purchasing spouse, which, you know, we just abbreviate that as NPS. So if you have a buyer and the spouse is not going to be on the mortgage, but they want to be entitled, then you can say, no problem. Let's let your lender know that, because the lender will need to know. What a lot of people will do, because not all lenders feel the same about this, is the person that is approved on your approval letter with the lender, that spouse you would want to put as the buyer on the purchase agreement. And then what a lot of people do is just do an amendment or an addendum back saying the spouse will be a non-purchasing spouse and their name. That way it's clear that Mr. Seller is going to be on the loan and the documents, but we're also going to add the spouse only on the deed that puts them into title, and then whatever documents the lender requires for non-purchasing spouse. So they'd still have to come to closing. They'll have to sign a few documents at closing, but the main borrower would have to sign everything at closing. Now, I'll let you take over purchase money mortgage because you probably had a transaction like that, right? Where the spouse wasn't involved at all. And the lenders may give them misinformation that, oh, it doesn't matter whether you do or don't put them on there. Have you had that type of a transaction?
Every transaction I've had, all the spouses have signed, so.
Oh, okay, so you haven't had, okay.
Yeah.
So you can also do purchase money mortgage, which would be the one to buy. And the spouse is not entitled. So let's take you for example, okay? So you are now our buyer and your spouse is out in the country and she doesn't care. She's like, go ahead and purchase the property. We don't need her because she's not on the mortgage. So you're going to sign as a married person. So it's a purchase money mortgage because you don't have the spouse signing. Now, as soon as you go into title, that spouse that is not entitled has 50% interest in the property. But if he passes away, that spouse has to go through probate court to determine who the other half of the property goes to. Why is that? Because they're not joint tenants, they're not entitled together, but she does have rights to 50%. Now, if your wife passes away, you are the survivor, you don't have to worry about going through probate. You would just have to record her death certificate and affidavit of survivorship for $46 to clear her interest.
Then you would just get all, take all the rest of it.
Yep. So that's why it's important to have this knowledge in your back pocket, So that when you have one of these situations, you can inform them, and you can always send them to Title II. We can talk them through this because it can be overwhelming to know all of this when you're not working in title. But something to really consider when your buyer is taking title on the property. Let's see. When you do a purchase money mortgage and your buyer purchases the property without their spouse, can you change that later? Yes, you can. You can file a quitclaim deed. Because they're married, both of them would have to deed to each other again, but then as joint tenants. Otherwise, they're considered tenants in common, which requires probate. Joint tenants is right of survivorship.
Think that they would do it one property and then they got married. And then
Yes.
the wife wanted.
Yep. Yes, yep, that's a good point. So if they buy it single, and then they get married later. So let's say, for example, Justin owns a property, marries Kayla. Now she wants to make sure that she's a joint tenant so that she doesn't have to go through probate should something terrible happen to him. Then she's going to want to work with herself. She can do it herself or a real estate attorney and draft a quitclaim deed from the both of them to the both of them as that they don't have to worry about any of that down the road. All right, so then we did touch on joint tenancy there. Any questions on that golden rule? 1 to buy, 2 to sell or refi? Good on that? Okay, now this is gonna be the fun part where you get to fill in the blank. I'm gonna erase this. I think, are you guys okay with that? It's all on that sheet. Okay. Great, so we are going to play fill in the blanks
I didn't
here.
know I was gonna get tested.
Well, you don't have to. Everyone's tested. You get to write it. Because you're the realtor for this. All right, so here's what we're gonna do here. All right, so we're gonna do a trust. So your buyer wants to purchase in the name of a trust rather than an individual, okay? So let's fill in the blank who your buyer will be. And who your signer will be. And you always want to have signing authority. Anytime anyone is signing in any other capacity other than themselves as an individual. All right, so this will be for trust. I'm going to put the details of the trust here. So it's going to be John Doe is the trustee of the John Doe Trust dated 1/1/24. Okay. So your buyer is John Doe. Well, actually your buyer is the trust, okay? So when you are drafting your purchase agreement, who will the buyer be in this? And we can all work together as a group. We want to help them fill in the blanks.
Buyer's the John Doe Trust.
Yes, exactly. Yep. So you'll fill in your buyer is actually the trust. So think of it as kind of like an entity. So if you had an LLC or a company buying a property, it's kind of the same in that sense that this is actually a trust. And you want to include all of the trust info. So this is the full title of the trust. You'll also want to include the dated after trust. So we'll want to add the dated 1/1/24. Perfect. All right, now who will your
Is
signer?
it John Doe Trust or the John Doe Trust?
Either way is okay. Either way will be acceptable. That's a good question. Yeah. Either way will be acceptable. All right, now who will the signer be for that trust? So this is who you're going to have on the signature line of that purchase agreement.
Want to be John?
Yep, so they will sign not as an individual, but as the trustee. So you will do John Doe, trustee. Yep. You have to say how they are related to, or how do they have authorization to sign on behalf of this trust? Now, it's not always the same name as the trust, because sometimes there's like a successor trustee if the original trustee passed away or something like that. Next then, anytime you have anyone sign on behalf of something, you want to ask them for signing authority right off the bat, because it has happened to several agents where they found out down the road that, oh, they didn't actually have authorization to sign, and it was somebody else that was supposed to be the trustee of the trust. Then they had to revise their purchase agreement or amend it. And so this is just a way for you guys to avoid having to deal with that down the road, you know, catch everything up front. So signing authority for the trust, does anybody know, or you can look at your cheat sheet? What do you want to ask your buyer for to prove that John Doe can sign as the trustee of this trust? Certificate of trust. Yep. So this would be a good one to just take a picture of, because it's all right in here. We'll tell you what to ask for. Yep. So you'll just ask them for a certificate of trust for signing authority. So that's what you can fill in there. Yep. You can put cert or certificate of trust. Perfect. All right. Now you guys are super smart when it comes to trust. Any questions on this at all?
And if there were like two people in the trust, there would be a second line and it'd be like Jane and then comma trustee.
Yep, so that's why it is important to ask for this, because there could also be a requirement that a co-trustee must also sign. So you'll have to look in there and just see, and you can always send it to the title company. We can review it for you, and then confirm whether another trustee has to sign with that person or not. But yeah, then it would be like John Doe, comma trustee, and Jane Doe, comma co-trustee, or however they have it listed there.
It happens a lot like with like properties, like second lake properties up north,
Yes.
where there's like, it's in the family trust where there's 8 kids that have to sign for everything.
Yep, that can happen. A lot of times they'll say that one or the other can, and so that's why you want to just review that trust to make sure. Do all of them have to sign? Do 2 of them have to sign, or just one?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll move into the next one, power of attorney. Do you guys want any more info from the board here before we erase? You want to keep participating?
Sure,
Or do you want to hand it off?
I'll be Vanna.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You're really good.
Unless
Vanna.
someone else
Thank you.
wants to be Vanna. Anybody want to be Vanna?
I feel like you're so good at it. It'll be hard to.
My handwriting is just not great, so
Oh, I think it's good.
thanks.
I didn't try very hard on mine, so I'm glad you could read mine. All right, next up, we're gonna do power of attorney. Do you want your power of attorney to be the buyer or the seller?
Ooh. Let's just keep it the same as buyer.
Okay.
Good.
All right. Power of attorney. Okay. I'm just gonna put sign off for signing authority. Take a little time. All right, so power of attorney, this is for our buyer. Your buyer says, all right, so I'm not gonna be around for the closing, so I'm gonna have to use a power of attorney. At that time, you can give them a couple options. If it's a cash buyer, they don't need to give a power of attorney because we can just e-sign them as long as they're okay with sending a wire transfer. We can just send those documents for e-signing. If there's a lender involved, we can do RON signings, which stands for Registered Online Notary. So we are online notary approved through the state of Minnesota. So we can sign your buyers or your sellers no matter where they are in the country. If they're out of state, if they're out of the country, we can still connect with them and get their electronic signing done over internet. But, for the, for the buyer, if we're gonna go through with the power of attorney and you cannot get lender approval for using a power of attorney for that buyer, then we're going to ask the lender, will you guys approve a power of attorney? In that event, if there isn't one already drafted, we can draft that for you guys. So just get like the buyer, the lender, and the title company all together in one email, and we can just work together to work out those details for you guys. But let's say there's an existing power of attorney for this case, okay? So, Jane Doe is our buyer, and she wants to give power, or she's given power of attorney to, John Doe to sign on her behalf because she doesn't want to do electronic signing. And she already has a power of attorney available. So who is our buyer in this scenario?
Jane, the buyer.
Yep. So that's who we want to put in title, right? We want to put our buyer in title. So we're going to put Jane Doe. Okay. And who will our signer be? Yep. So John Doe will be the signer. And what are we going to put after the comma? Because he is not Jane Doe. We are going to put AIF, or attorney in fact. So a lot of people think that it's POA. The power of attorney is just actually the document that's granting power. And the person that is authorized to sign on behalf of the power of attorney is actually the attorney in fact. So you can either use just AIF afterwards, or you can write out attorney in fact, hyphens or without. We're not picky there. You can also. Yeah, you can do that too. It doesn't matter. Don't need any punctuation in between, or you can add it in. Okay, so signing authority. Now you want to make sure that John can actually sign for your buyer, right? So what kind of signing authority do you want to ask Jane for? Power of attorney. Yep. Yep, so you could put POA or power of attorney. And it has to be the recordable version. So if it's like a very old version, just let them know we will need the original for recording at the county. But we do want to see a copy of that ahead of time just to review and have it approved. Sometimes we just have to add the legal description and some other items like maybe drafted by or something so that it will be recordable. If we are drafting it, you won't have to worry about it because we're using the uniform conveyancing blanks with the state of Minnesota. Any questions on handling a power of attorney? This will go the same for a seller too. Everyone feel good about that one?
So like if someone's knows they're gonna be on like a 4-month business trip, and then they're like, okay, well, we're gonna have this transaction, do the power of attorney there.
Yeah.
Or if someone's like sick or something, or
Absolutely. There'll be so many different scenarios, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like we get all of the different kinds of transactions right now. Nothing's easy right now, especially. Right. Next up, we just have 2 more. All right, next up is an estate.
Mom Sunflower.
Oh my gosh.
My mom has my brother and her phone as, name is Drew, Droopy Drew's best son. And so when hers goes off and she doesn't have like her earpiece,
Droop.
I'm like, stop. That's funny.
All right, so for an estate, this would only apply for a seller. So we're going to use our seller scenario. Does anybody know how a property becomes an estate? All right, so a property becomes an estate if there's only one person, let's say there's several different ways. Okay, so let's say in this case, there's only one owner. So your grandpa, John Smith, he has passed away. He doesn't have a transfer on death recorded. He doesn't have the property in the name of the trust. He's just entitled as John Smith by himself. Now, that means this property has to go through probate, so he, whoever is going to try to be the personal representative, of the estate and sign for it, will have to go through probate court. We can always send out referrals if any of your clients do have to go through probate, but we do want to ask too if they have a transfer on death deed recorded, because then there would be no need for it going through probate. So once probate is completed, then is when it then becomes an estate. So the court documents will say now this is the estate of John Smith. And we'll say Paul Smith was appointed as the personal representative or personal rep for the estate, so he gets to sign for this. Oh, I didn't do signing authority. All right, so for this estate, because it has gone through probate and the courts have now deemed Paul Smith as the personal representative of this estate, and they have referenced this legal description and this property in the probate. Who is our seller?
Would it be the estate of John Smith?
Correct.
I just draw an arrow. You make it.
Absolutely.
But I'm gonna look good doing it.
Yeah, you are. All right, who is our signer? Yep, Paul Smith, comma.
Personal.
Yep, we always have to reference why. Why is he signing for John Smith? Oh, he's the personal representative. And you can do comma PR for personal rep, or you can write it out. Yep, you can always do that. All right, now, signing authority. How are you going to prove that they have authorization to sign on behalf of this estate? Yes. It is called a probate order, or order if you want it short. The probate order is the court document that appoints the personal representative. Yep. Perfect. All right, any questions on that? Just reach out when any of these situations happen.
All these signing authorities are just gonna be legal documents that are.
Yes, and you don't need originals of these. We will to record on the property, and so we'll work with your seller on that later, so you can give them a heads up. Like, we will, when you pre-sign with the title company, need those originals, but we'll give those instructions to them at that time. But you just want a copy so that you have that proof in your file.
Yep.
For your own safety, right? And then also just for your brokerage, so they don't have to ask you for it, and they'll be like, wow, you get bonus stars because you provided this documentation that most people don't know is needed.
Our office is like pretty good at asking for a lot of like things that aren't required. Like we always have to have a net sheet
Oh,
or
yes.
anything closes.
Good. You're trained well. And you're a good listener. All right, next we're gonna do LLC or company. Let's just go with LLC, just keep it simple. All right, do you want your LLC, your company to be your buyer or your seller? LLC as the seller. All right. Just. Well, I did.
Have be short, not.
Yeah.
You wanna write that one off? Signers for-
All right, so we're going to have, John Doe Limited LLC. John Doe is the managing member. Okay, who is, we're gonna do it, we're gonna switch it up. Who's gonna be your signer? And you can just draw a line
Okay.
if you want. Who's gonna be your signer for John Doe Limited LLC? John Doe in what capacity? So you wanna do comma? Yep. Perfect. So John Doe, comma, managing member, not just John Doe, because he's not an individual, he is the managing member of the LLC. All right, now who is your seller? That'll be, you guys can always verify too, if they are the signer by going, you can just Google, state of Minnesota SOS business search filing. And then you can just plug in what the name of the company is, and it will confirm whether it's active or inactive. If it's inactive, you'll have to tell your seller or your buyer that they need to reactivate it before this transaction occurs. We've only seen that a few times where it's inactive, and it's really easy to reactivate that with the state, unless there's an issue. That's one thing that you will want to do too. And then, for signing authority, what do we want to ask for? What do we want to ask John Doe for so that we can prove he has the right to sign or sell this property? Yep, so it could either be articles or resolution. Some very small LLCs won't even know what that is. And in that event, you can let us know that they don't have any kind of signing authority. And so we can send them over a resolution to fill out that says that they do have the right to sell. So you can just put articles or resolution for signing authority. And then what you want to Google to confirm that your seller or your buyer has an active license with the state is SOS, Minnesota, and it can be in any order. Business search.
What would cause an SOS to not be active? Yeah, I've been here the whole time. My mic wasn't working for the longest time.
Okay, so what would cause it to go inactive was your question?
Yeah, I know it's kind of few and far between, like you said, but what would cause that with the state?
It's usually just because of expiration. So I think it's,
Okay.
is it every 4 years? Anyone know for sure? I think it's every 4 years that you have to renew, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah, I need it.
Yeah, I think it is 4. So yeah, usually it's the date. And so if they're not notified, like if they change their email address or their address, their mailing address, they may not have gotten notification that they needed to renew that. It's usually just that case, but if they have fines and penalties with the state or federal, then they may not be able to reactivate it. All right, so any questions then on a company, LLC, or any company for a seller or a buyer? That's it. All right, cool. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Great job.
Great
You did
job.
such a good job. Melanie will be so proud of
Oh, gosh.
you.
Never gonna hear the end of it from her.
All right, so this one will for sure be a good one to take a picture of or screenshot, the one that I put in your, what do you call it, your Facebook page? All righty, so we are going to move, are we doing okay on time? Yeah. Okay, I think we're gonna go till 12, right? Are you guys good till 12?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we can get through the last here in less than 20 minutes. All right, Alta settlement statement. If you guys have been doing this for a while, you're probably already familiar with the Alta settlement statement. But we're just gonna run through just a dummy one, just so we can kind of touch on any questions that you might have. So you know what your title company is disclosing to your buyer or your seller. I'm just gonna choose one side or the other, so I'll let you guys choose. Do you want me to go through as if you are a buyer or go through as if you are a seller?
So.
Okay. All right, so this Alta settlement statement basically summarizes all of the numbers that are included in this transaction. So as your title company, we are kind of like the middle of the transaction. We're taking in all of the information from all parties in the transaction. So, you know, from the seller side title company, from the buyers themselves, from the lender, their processor, agent, their transaction coordinator. So there's a lot of communication that goes on with title. So when we have it all together, we're going to put it together in this Alta settlement statement. Our processors always send this out to you guys and your transaction coordinator once they have all the numbers together, so that you can verify that everything is on here, so that we don't have surprises at the closing table or after closing. So this is just a way to be proactive, because we don't want to deal with issues later. Let's catch them before we close or we sit down at the table. We do outline, I don't know if any of you have had a transaction with Great North Title, but we do break it down for our processors. And they say, okay, so here's your commission, here is your admin fee, and then some other details, so that you don't really even have to open up this attachment if you don't want to, or click on the link where it's attached. So you can always just review that email too, and then just have your transaction coordinator or yourself respond. This is going to be even more important now that those changes with the NAR settlement are going into play. We do now ask for the buyer comp disclosure, and that's not just to be nosy or be annoying. It's because we want to be your second line of defense, so that this is not being missed. Okay, so let's say the seller, your buyer comp disclosure says 2.7, but the seller, they're only going to pay out 2.5. So your buyer has to pay 0.2%. Well, if you don't know and you don't tell us or the lender to put that on the settlement statement, you're gonna have to deal with that after closing. So we are asking for that just so that we can be that extra reminder. We can come back to you and say, oh, hey, there's a 0.2%. Should we be collecting that on the settlement statement from the buyer, since the 2.5 will be handled by the seller? So if you guys have any of those special situations, I think you might be breaking them down in the purchase agreement as well. But I know that nothing's really set in stone yet, and now pushed out to August, right? As far as you know, for the actual changes. But we are seeing it now. We're seeing these transactions happening right now where it is split. There was one that recently came up where nobody notified us. And so the transaction coordinator actually covered the difference for the agent. So that's why we have that in play, so that we can avoid all of that happening. All right, so we're going to dive in. Does anyone have any questions about how this Alta settlement statement comes together? Or should we just dive in as if I'm explaining it to your seller? Okay. All right, so after everyone has reviewed and approved this settlement statement, your seller is going to come and sit down at the table with Melanie. Typically about 3 days prior to when the buyer is going to sign and the transaction actually funds. We're going to pre-sign the seller so that we have time to overnight those documents to the buyer's title company, because they're going to disperse all of the funds since they are the insuring title company. Or if it's a dual, we're also representing the buyer. We get to deal with the buyer too, which is what we prefer. So dual cash transactions, those are our favorite. Just in case you have any. All right, so we're gonna dive right in. We're gonna go through the left side. Typically, it's not combined, seller and buyer anymore. They used to be, but in this case, we just combined it in one just for your information. All right, so I'm gonna talk to you as if you are my seller. So here we're gonna start out with your purchase price. And then we are going to debit the seller credit towards the buyer's closing costs. Now, taxes were paid by the seller, by you, for the first half of the year. That covers January 1st to the middle of the year, June 30th or July 1st. So the buyer is giving you a prorated credit from the closing date, which will be April 30th, or was April 30th, through to the middle of the year. So that is a credit to you. Association dues, if there's an association, those were paid for by the seller for April. And so the buyer is giving you a prorated credit for that one day that is left in April that they are going to own the property. Now you have two mortgages on the property, one with Citizens and one with BCU. And so these will get overnighted to both of these banks on the day that it closes. So they should receive it the following business day. If you have auto pay set up on either of those, you want to go ahead and stop auto pay. And then government reporting charges, we have a $5 conservation fee that goes along with the state deed tax of $1,700. Now the state deed tax is based on your sales price. So that's going to be $500,000 and for Hennepin County times 0.0034. That is how that is calculated. Now we have to record the lien release for that line of credit with BCU. So it's $46 to record each document at the county. So there are two charges there, one for the trust docs and then one for the release fee. Now we're going to move down into commissions. Here's the administrative fee that goes to your real estate company. And then we have the commission then that is split between two agencies. We will then carry over to the next page where we'll go through our title charges. So first off, we have the document preparation and then payout processing. And then we're going to wire your proceeds once the buyer is done signing. And so we've included that wire fee in there. And then there's a recording service fee to get those documents of record at the county. Next section are all of the miscellaneous charges. So anything else that is charged that is not included in these other categories are listed here. So there was mentioned in the purchase agreement that you are responsible for any pending or levied assessment. And so when we did our assessment search, we see that there was an assessment that was certified to the taxes. Now, since you've already paid for first half taxes and we have based the proration off of the first half taxes less the assessment, the buyer's only prorating based on the base taxes for first half. You are responsible for the balance of the second half certified assessment. So we're collecting for that there. And then the balance of this assessment that is due to the city is $2,000. So we'll send that into the city on the closing days. Next up is the closing fee. Now that will typically be up under the title charges. I'm not sure why it is under here. And then association dues. So if there's ever an association included, they do have to pay for those what is the document called? I think it's the resolution. The HOA docs that we have to get up.
Oh, like,
Rules and regs. Yeah. Okay, I'll think of it in a little bit. So they do have to pay for that up front and provide it to the buyer within a certain period, right? But then also they get charged for a due current letter that the title company has to order. So that fee will be included in here. And then if there are any dues, we'll collect those there if there's anything past due. Some will also have like a move in or move out fee. And so we'll add that on here as well if there is. And then another example here is just if the attorney provided trust docs that they had a bill for, we can always add those bills right in here. And then in this case, first half taxes weren't paid for, so we did collect for it here, but they are getting that prorated credit here. Now, we were in the last few weeks at the point where taxes may have been paid by the lender if they were escrowing for taxes. But until they actually show paid at the county, we still have to collect for it. So if they say, oh, there's a disbursement and it doesn't show paid yet, we're still gonna collect here. And then they'll just receive the second payment that is processed by the county. So it'll either come back from the lender or the title company. So right around this time, right around May 15th and October 15th, and like 30 days leading up to that, most likely it'll be double paid. And then they'll get that back in 30 days typically. So then we're gonna jump down here to our total amount of debits versus credits. Brings us to the 79,377.30, and that is what you will be expecting be wired to your account after the buyer signs on the 30th. Any questions on that breakdown at all?
I do. Can you guys hear me? If you're doing a proration of the yearly taxes from a non-homesteaded property, and it's going to be a homesteaded property, is the breakdown still just the typical proration, or do people alter it to reflect the homestead pricing?
Yes, so if it is non-homestead and the seller agrees to pay a difference between non-homestead and homestead, if there is a difference, we'll check with the county and see what that is. And then we will do a debit credit for the difference. And then the proration will be based on less that.
What's typical? What do you guys see?
It's usually around a couple hundred.
No, I mean, like, what's typical? Is it typical for to make the difference between homestead and non-homestead, or is it typically just split from whatever the non-homestead taxes are?
It seems like it's typically written in that the seller will cover the difference. But if you just want to avoid that altogether, you can always just write 0 in there.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. I mean, if it's an investment property and your buyer is gonna not homestead it, because it's also gonna be an investment property for them, that would be a good reason to put 0, because why would they get that credit? Because it's gonna stay in non-homestead status.
Right.
But if you say homestead the current year by December, it's now the end of the year. So by December 31st, the next year's taxes will be in homestead status as long as they file that application. And the property will stay in homestead status once they've done that, as long as they don't change how they're entitled. It'll stay in homestead the entire time.
Okay. Side note, that deadline changed to December 31st, right? It's no longer early December.
Yep, we still say December 1st, just for those procrastinators, so they still have it done. But yes, it is the 31st. Most counties are online now too, so it's super easy. That is one thing that Great North Title does as well, as we help our buyer at the closing table take care of that. So if it's online, they can do it while we're making copies. Or if we have to fill out an application, we can help them fill it out just to make sure that everything was filled in properly. And then give them the address to get that mailed in. They don't forget to do it later.
The title of that document for the HOA is the resale disclosure.
Yes, thank you. Resale disclosure. Yes. I knew it was an R and I just had resolution stuck in my head. Thank you. All right, so we did successfully get through our Alta settlement statement. Congratulations, you guys. Thank you for those wonderful questions. Last but not least, we have title insurance. So all of you don't have to know any of this, but I'm just providing this for your information, just so you have a little extra education in your back pocket. So most title companies will quote the Alta standard coverage, which only covers these items here in that first column. We do quote all of our policies with the enhanced, which is called a homeowner's policy. Now you can only get this enhanced coverage if it's not an investment property, if it's being held in the name of a trust or an individual. You can't do it for commercial properties, and you cannot get that if you are foreign, if you're a foreign investor. So do know that we do quote the higher rate. So if you get a quote on our website, it's usually just 100 or 200 more to get that enhanced version. But that's the reason that we might be a little bit more expensive than another quote. But we will drop it down to the standard if they're not eligible for this enhanced coverage. And we can always email this out to your customer if they have questions about title insurance. every once in a while, people want to be extra well informed, and so we're happy to provide anything that they need that helps them make the decision that they need to make prior to closing.
What are a couple of main reasons why you would want to enhance policy? For just $100 more?
I mean, they're all listed here, but yeah, there's an additional coverage regarding, unrecorded leases or judgments. That title insurance, is going to, most likely allow them to avoid having to contact a real estate attorney to clean up any kind of messes they run across. In this event, they would be able to file a claim with our underwriter, to see if they can take care of it. If whatever has occurred, can be covered under what they have purchased here. Post-policy fraud, you can see on the bottom there. That's an important one. That's what we're going to be seeing quite a bit of now that you can electronically record and electronically sign and notarize things. So they'll be able to help fight any of those fraud situations that may happen after the fact. All right, that's a wrap, you guys. We finished 3 minutes ahead of schedule.
Thank you.
So we'll open it up for Q&A if anybody has any additional questions, or maybe you've had enough.
I'll come to you when I actually thinking in the next.
It's a lot to
Yeah.
take in, but just wanting to have it at your fingertips and know that we're ready to inform you when you need it.
Can you email out those handouts?
Yep, for sure.
Thank you.
Well, let's see, do I have a list of, do you want to shoot me an email, Zach? Do you see
Sure
my-
thing, I will.
I'm just Britt, BRIT, @greatnorthttitle.com, just one T in Britt.
Awesome, thank you.
Shoot me an email, I'll email that out to you guys. Awesome. All right, and if you have any orders to send to Mel, we make it super easy. You can just email Team Mel, so TEAM and then MEL, just one L, @greatnorthttitle.com, and then Jackie, Kelly, or Melanie will get back to you right away. They're all watching that inbox, so if you have any questions or orders, but you're also welcome to call me or email me or text me if you have any questions. We're here to help. All right, thanks, you guys.
Yeah, if you guys write your emails and we can make sure and get you guys.
Right? I did ask you about that. I guess it's a lot of work to get
Oh, I'm
the
sure.
approval for that. But if you guys do want ways to get additional CE credit, we can do it through underwriter. So I'll talk to Kami about it and see if she wants us to set anything up, because you could get a little extra title knowledge in there from our underwriter. How many hours do you have to get each year? 13. So they could probably cover a couple hours of it at least. Thanks so much. Yeah, thanks, you guys.
I have a well done from George, yes, she was here.
Oh, did she?
Casey Lena.
Oh, I love Casey.
Yeah, she's a really good.
Oh, is she? Oh, yes. We love her. Nothing like a fun trip. She does.
Yeah.
I know.
Fun.
I don't like, if I ever go on a trip, I'm just gonna ask you to.
Did she tell you how many weddings she's in this year?
No.
She's in at least,
Oh, gosh.
and
Oh
she's
my
got
God.
8 bachelorette.
And they're all
I'm
like
like,
destination ones,
destination.
right?
That's all the thing now. I don't know how these.
All
How do
eight.
they afford
I was
it?
in
She
7
was
weddings.
just
It
in
was expensive.
I know her place. She was just in,
I probably spent like.
down in Florida and like 38.
Just
Yeah.
alone.
And now a week before she was.
The
in
bachelor
Scottsdale.
parties too, were those also destinations?
Parties.
Are they all in the US
Yeah,
or some?
everything.
I think they're all in the US,
Okay.
but yeah.
That's why when I get
Wow,
married,
I
I'm
bet-
gonna pay for all the guys. But
Well,
I'm like,
hopefully she had a wildest paper.
there's no reason why you should have to feel like you have to
It's
decide to
expensive, and her
spend your money or
husband's
spend
back
and
from
hang out with
Europe not that long
Because
ago.
them. I wanna get married and invite you into the party.
Right. Well, and now she's got a listing in Fredley, and she's
yeah.
like, I wish it was felt, and I'm like, Casey, you're out of town, you're gonna get an offer.
Yeah.
Right, that's what you gotta do. You have to leave.
You have to go out of town.
Transaction.
Yeah.
Oh my God, can she wear the same dress for any of them?
like same color, you know? There's not that many colors, right? Like, for dresses that people want. Like, I'd be so tired, like, after getting back.
I always,
That really shows.
I always time Melody.
You know, like that age
Exciting.
you want her at your wedding.
Yeah.
I don't like
Jokes
four
at,
people
like, our
here.
first-
I know,
I was like,
right?
oh, that was like under 10 minutes. She's like, I can do a fast next time. And
So the, what's the quickest one so far?
okay, our last one, I swear, was like 4 minutes. Yeah. I was like,
Obviously, that seller wanted no explanation.
well, it was for
You're
for
closing
my
that
buyer. I
door,
was
right?
like, literally, I was like, you guys had your T's and I's dotted because that was really fast. It was like probably 5 minutes at
Were
most.
there lender docs or was it cash?
I was 30% down. So
I wonder if they did partial easing.
I think it probably did, yeah. It was
I think that was
insane.
my quickest one too.
It was like, she's an attorney and like they bought.
Oh, yeah.
So
They
like,
probably reviewed everything in advance.
yeah, she likes to read everything.
And she did it beforehand. Which
Cause
is
that's what I was
what
gonna
we
say,
love.
usually I hear the opposite, that if they are like attorneys or anything, like they sit at the table and they read through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And those are the longest ones.
Yeah,
She's pretty efficient. She is awesome.
yeah, she is amazing. We love that she's on her.
I'm thrilled that you know Casey.
Yeah, I met her when I was doing, I was a real admin for Whitehurt.
Yeah.
And then
Oh,
I
yeah.
also worked, doing, like in personnel files. for-
Okay.
at Health.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just got to here too.
You should join
Yeah.
yourself.
Do you wanna come in, do you wanna get in our selfie?
Sure, why not?
For one buyer's.
What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing with my closer?
Do you try to get her to come to color? Yeah.
She lives in the opposite end of the country.
Yeah. But it's funny.
She lives in Keegan, right?
She does, and she's got a set of buyers right now that, we're looking in like Waconia. I'm like, that is like a day trip.
Prefer that. Sorry. Figure that out.
Well, it was nice to meet you.
Yeah,
Like,
thanks
thank
for
you so much.
doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
Fine.